Hi. Um, so I want to try and explore a theme of duality that I've seen in Nintendo art, which has to do mostly with the classic sort of yin yang duality, but I'm going to use the Kabbalah to explore it because I think the added complexity that you get from the Kabbalah um, allows for more in-depth symbolic analysis, which is what you get when you look at visuals like cover art. Um, so, in any case, I'll just start directly where I usually start, which is Super Mario Land. Um, so I'm just going to think out loud here, basically, because Mm, I'm not sure what to focus on. There's a lot of things, and there's some things that seem to connect. Some connect in a really abstract way. Some seem slightly more uncanny to me, but I'm not sure exactly where it's leading to. So I'm just going to kind of think out loud here. So, hmm, okay. So one thing I could start with is this. Mario has a purple sort of ghost-like figure flying towards the left side of the screen. So from the right of the screen to the left is a purple figure. Now in Super Mario Land 2 we have a similar kind of thing where a purple witch, in this case it's not a ghost, but it's still sort of an entity associated with death and with the nighttime, flowing from the right to the left. Now, okay, so let's take this to start with, okay? So, apart from the purpleness of this, it's mainly just this theme of something flying from the right to the left of the screen. So, other instances of this could be not this, more or less this, for example, right? Where you have the winged hero flying on the right of the screen. You have once again this thing here going on, which is a bit weird, where you have Kamek the witch as well, dressed in blue or purple on the right side of the screen, and sort of shooting this ray which seems to emanate this winged, this caped hero, flying sort of entity flying from the right to the left. Of course, we have Mario himself in this sort of famous cover art. And this also features a purple witch on the right side of the screen, but this time flying towards the right. So essentially, there's this thing. Flying ghost. Once again, it picks up the theme of the ghost on the right side, kind of associated to the purple through the number 4, but that's, a different category of symbolism. Again, flying on the right side of the screen. So this always, I guess, when I notice these kind of things, it usually wakes up an interest in analyzing the picture as a right and left kind of division and seeing what there is there. And cartoons and video games, they really play out this theme of good versus evil or light versus dark, right? Where you have like all the evil characters here, all the good characters here. This is a really classic kind of thing. Actually, in fact, there was another example that I wanted to look at. Right, okay, so here we have the witch, again, on the right side of the screen, associated to Waluigi, who is purple, sort of as one character compound kind of thing, flying. But in any case, it makes you wonder how to sort of take these kind of divisions, because in some cases they're really obvious, and in some they're slightly more subtle. I mean, this would be a really obvious one. You have the sun and the moon on either side of Mario. And just to take note of this, the sun is on the left of the screen, the moon is on the right. But this is not always the case, and this is what intrigues me. Here, for example, is the other way around, more or less. You have the ghosts, the ghost and the skull, and a general sort of bluish, greyish, purplish tone on the left side, and the sun, the pyramids, the desert, really solar kind of imagery on the right side. So it's the opposite of this, right? Now, it's weird because there's another example of this kind of switch. And it is... Okay, so for example, this. In itself, we have the same thing where we have the sun, or the pyramids, the desert, fire on the left side. And on the right side, there's the ghost. And just in general, I would say this sort of bluish mountains, it has a cooler kind of feel to it than this side. The sky is darker. There's cloud. It's sort of this seems more like daytime. This seems more like evening, sort of thing. But once again, here we have the nighttime and the sort of the evil characters, and the daytime and this sort of heroic character. But this brings to mind, right, so okay, there's several things that can be looked at here. First of all, the switching of sides seems to happen arbitrarily. I can't find a pattern for it, but it could be significant. So the first thing I can see, the first clue of a pattern, is that in this case, the sun is on the right, but on this case, for example, the sun was on the left. But what does this have in common with this? Okay, so this sun is on the right, this sun is on the right. But here, the central focus is two characters, Mario and Luigi. Right? Mario and Luigi. Luigi gets associated with the nighttime, Mario with the daytime. And this makes sense to me because... Excuse me. Because Luigi is mainly associated to horror video games. Like whenever he appears solo in a video game, it has to do with fear, right? With entering a mansion full of ghosts and so on. So Luigi is very associated to the shadow, and Mario is very associated to the light. Mario is red. His clothes are already solar, fiery. So it almost seems like whenever Mario and Luigi are the central like focus of the image, Luigi gets associated to the nighttime, to the ghosts and the skeletons and stuff. But whenever Mario is alone, Mario has the sun on his right side and the moon on his left. Again, this is not always like there are cases where this does not happen, and that's why I want to think about it out loud. But basically, this is why I think I could associate this to the twin pillars of the Tree of Life. Because you have Boaz being the moon, the night, Yakin being the sun, the sort of daytime. And these get switched around. See, Boaz, Yakin, depending on the intention of the drawing, of the intention of the representation. For example, here we have so we have Boaz on the right of the picture, right? So there's Bina, so on the right side, Chesed on the left side. I mean, Chokmah and Chesed. And I think this has to do with the fact that the guy here in the middle is placed in the tree. So this guy's, his right side is Yakin, and his left side is Bina. In the almost literal sense that the right brain is a sort of expansive, pure kind of pure energy, pure unlimited energy in a sense. And then the left side would be limitation. So Bina would be the moon, but in some cases, in some of the images, Bina is the world and Yakin is the stars. Here, the sun. Because Yakin is energy and Bina is the world, in the sense that Bina is the Maya, the veil of Maya, the spider's web. It's the structure through which energy flows. And then all in all, that creates the world. I mean, the world is in reality. But of course here, it switches around depending on how it's represented. And I think it has something to do with this thing of sometimes it's represented so that the right side is literally the right side of the person standing in the tree, and sometimes the right side, so Yakin, would be literally on the right of the drawing because you, the viewer, are staring into the tree. You are looking at yourself. In this case, you, looking at the high priestess, are this guy, or girl, person, sitting in the tree. So, again, this doesn't apply to all cases, but but let's try to apply it until it stops working, basically. Here it kind of works. You would have the right hand of Mario is the sun, the left side is the moon. And in the cases where he's together with Luigi, you could just say that the intention of the image has changed. Suddenly, it's more like the High Priestess tarot card, where you are looking at the two sides of the self represented by Mario and Luigi. This is an interesting one because it starts to highlight a different kind of theme that also appears in some of these drawings, which is movement. Movement from the left to the right, or from the right to the left. Here, for example, the characters are... Oops, sorry. Here the characters are moving from the left to the right, but there is an overwhelming majority of archetypally evil characters on the left, and there's an overwhelming majority of good characters, obviously like epitomized by Mario, on the right. So obviously Donkey Kong used to be, you know, the original villain. Bowser is the villain, and it all kind of ascends towards Mario. And the star seems to be the guiding, it's almost like the star is guiding this process from the left to the right. So anyway, you could already sort of jump to many conclusions at this point, but they're just weak hypotheses at this moment. But it could be that there's this theme of you could interpret it as being a balancing, right? So that as a culture, and again, this is just a pure conjecture on my part, but mostly what we talk about when referring to like I don't know, problems in the world, it very often has to do with a certain imbalance in the at least in like spiritual kind of terms. You could say that there maybe is an imbalance in the tree, that the balance would be for the two pillars to be in a state of equilibrium, which would then activate the middle pillar. Well, activate or sort of strengthen it or whatever. So you could potentially say that the pillar of Boaz being form and structure is the stronger of the two, in the sense that the right brain, being pure dream, pure imagination, is slightly repressed in our culture, and form, structure is very strong. So that maybe creativity and art, and of course this includes video games, is through the unconscious psyche of culture, this kind of desire is appearing in our art of moving from the left brain to the right brain, not because the right brain is the good one and the left the bad one, but simply because there needs to be a balance between the two. Here, sort of almost symbolized by this pyramid in the middle. So anyway, that's just one possibility, but it's one that I seem to see sometimes in this cover art. And it sort of connects with what I'd been talking about in another video about themes of evolution appearing in Mario games, where you have the the reptile at the back, then the monkey, then the, let's say, I don't know what you'd call it. Wario is almost like what in Buddhism would be a person driven by animal desire or something like that. And then Mario would be the enlightened sort of Buddha kind of being. So there's this sort of theme of evolution towards like enlightenment sometimes in these Mario artwork, which could have something to do with the themes of duality that are appearing and how they are handled and how they're represented. So let's go back here. There's something that really intrigues me about this image, and it's mostly that you have the sun on the left side and the moon on the right, but there is also, so if the moon is blue and the sun is red, there seems to be an inverted duality here. There's blue on the left and red on the right, and then yellow, a yellow seahorse in the middle. Now, in the context of analyzing this from a sort of yin-yang Kabbalistic kind of perspective, this seems to be like the same duality, with the middle pillar, which is usually represented by light, right? So the color yellow or gold in the middle. And the vehicle that Mario is using to navigate this is golden. A seahorse, of course, is a horse in a sense, and the horse is the classic divine chariot kind of symbolism. I find it interesting that Mario's vehicle is yellow in both cases, in the sky, under the sea. It's all golden. It's all this sort of, I don't know what it would be, Tiferet, or sort of, sort of navigating the middle pillar kind of thing. But then, of course, what's happening here, right? You have the fish and the octopus. Now, you could interpret it in a way that the colors have been switched around precisely because you're under the water. So, like, in the unconscious, it's one way, but then once it's expressed in material existence, it switches around, which in fact I think is precisely what is said to happen in the Tree of Life, where you have, for example, a series of switches as Keter manifests down into existence or into material form. It sort of does this zigzag thing where, like, Netzach, victory, is Venus, but Venus is also here in Bina, or Mercury would be associated to the pillar of wisdom, but then Hod is also Mercury. So as it originates on this side, but it ends up manifesting on the opposite side. So it could be something like that, where the psyche is like a mirror, where the way it manifests into awareness is the sort of opposite of what it was in the unconscious. But it could also be a meaningless sort of choice of color, that the fish is the sun and the octopus is the moon, regardless of what their color is. So, anyway, let's look at different examples of this, because this theme does appear again. Here, for example, we have the fish on the left side, also sort of jumping out of the water. And there's no octopus on the right, but you could kind of infer that the turtle here is this turtle. It's just like a different form of the same turtle. And as we know, inside the turtle is the octopus boss. So the turtle could potentially be the octopus. But again, that would be sort of jumping to conclusions at this point. Now, another sort of example of this. Well, in this case, for example, you have the fish jumping out of the water on this side as well. And on the other side, there's another fish, but this fish is sleeping. So these fish, it's almost like they're waking up, right? In fact, again, you divide this into two, and you have, once again, the light is on the left when Mario is alone. Here, the light is on the left, the nighttime is on the right. This guy is sleeping in the water. These guys are almost like waking up into consciousness. But then it has this sort of up and down kind of thing where the moon is here. So, yeah, I mean, could be interpreted in various ways. Incidentally, the moon is also on the left here. The moon as a symbol, but here, I mean, both here and here, and I know this is an excuse really just to make things fit, but when you zoom into here, you can see that there's a star here. I mean, it's hard to tell, but it's a sort of typical Mario design for a star. And here is the moon. So it's almost like that. And this is Bowser's face, and it's as if the star and the moon here are like a combo. And here the star and the moon are a combo too. It's as if the star and the moon, as I was saying before, were the sun. In the way that, for example, in the pillars of the tree, Yakin is represented with the celestial globe, the stars and the moon and all this. But then sometimes Boaz is the moon. But it makes me wonder if maybe the combination of the moon and the stars is Yakin. And then Boaz, which is structure, is the shell of the world, the turtle shell. Another example of this, for example, is Wario Land 4, more or less, but there's also this theme of the water animal with water glasses coming out of the left side of the screen, as with these guys. And in a sense, it's not the same, but just the fact that this shark is wearing something that is artificial to itself is sort of resonating of this crocodile having to wear a breathing tube. So one possible way of interpreting this is that the sleeping fish is Boaz, nighttime, and then this is pure energy shooting out in Yakin. But and if you divide it into two, you have the shell here too, breaking out of the shell. I mean, that's okay. So that's why these images are complicated, because they're so circular, and it seems like there is a path that's being followed around and around. Because really, you could just as easily look at it the other way around and say that this is Boaz and this is Yakin, because Yakin is pure energy and therefore is the right brain and therefore is dream time, so sleeping. And then Boaz is structure, so it's waking up and consciousness. But again, that's one of these sort of like switcheroos in the tree, which I'm not quite sure how to interpret yet, because it depends a lot. But it could be almost as if you were to look at it the way we were before, that this is Yakin and this is Boaz. First, at least it keeps this thing of this being the darker side of the picture and this the lighter side. But it also sort of keeps this thing of the shell being broken out of. So if Boaz would be the shell, then you break out of the shell, so pure energy breaks out, and then it creates a new shell, and then that shell breaks and energy comes out, and it sort of goes on and on. But at this point, I'm not sure how to look at this, so that's why I want to think about it out loud. But there are sort of themes that repeat. So, for example, here we have a similar kind of thing where there's the tropics, palm trees, the sun, ice, the moon, cold, hot, cold, right? Mario is alone. It's the same kind of thing. Hot, cold. Hot, cold. And here, again, it corresponds because cold is associated to the ghost, hot is associated to the star, the burning star. So the left side is the star, the right side is the ghost. And that would put Yakin on Mario's right side, Boaz on Mario's left side. So we have the ghost on the right side as Boaz. But see, that's what's interesting, because then the ghost on the right side, if the ghost on the right side were Boaz, then this would be Yakin. It's intriguing because there's a lot sort of going on in these pictures. And that's what's sort of fascinating about them, in that they work almost as tarot cards. You know, you can read your own kind of psychological questions into them. But at the same time, there still seems to be something uncannily real about some of these coincidences. Some can be extrapolated into infinity and make very little objective sense, but some, I think, are worth investigating, and that's why I keep coming back to Mario artwork. Okay, so here, for example, we have 1, 2, this on the ground, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have an 8-pointed star representing the cardinal points and essentially representing, if this were north-south, then this is the center of the world, right? So the 8-pointed star, as being the star of Venus, and as I mentioned in the other video, the 8-pointed star also being the lotus flower, so that it's the navel of the world, or in this sort of pure center of the world. So you have the world as physical existence, material existence, being Maya, but then there's the center of the world, which is the center from which Maya flows out. So it has no place, it's not here or there, it has no time, it's not then or now. It's timeless and placeless, but it is still a point. In that sense, I guess you could associate it to Keter, or maybe more to sort of to Yakin, I guess. But because it's the pure energy, in a sense, is what it represents. But that's why it's so interesting then that the 8-pointed star is the symbol of Venus. If Venus were to be associated to Boaz, unless you took Venus in her Netzach kind of stage, which is within this side. But another interpretation, in a sense, is precisely that Venus's star is pure energy. Okay, so for example, let's look at this. I think this kind of helps me put it into perspective. So this is the birth of Venus, the famous painting. And you clearly see this connection between Venus and the shell. So the shell, the veil of Maya, or the belly of the whale, or all these different things, as being the network through which energy flows, right? But of course, the shell has a center as well. You could say that Venus's star is the 8-pointed star precisely because one can't exist without the other. The 8-pointed star is sort of intimately linked to the material world. It makes me think too of the Gnostic hymn of the pearl, where the sort of Gnosticism is describes itself as this quest of you, the reader, or anyone, as being originating from outside manifestation, but you descend into manifestation, or you descend into incarnation to recover a pearl, but forget about it because you get so distracted by physical phenomena and by sensory data, I guess. But then, of course, where do pearls originate? They originate in seashells. So if the material world itself were to be considered a seashell, then where is the pearl? It's in the center of the shell. So the pearl is in the center of the world. In the center of the world, represented by the 8-pointed star, which is also the symbol of infinity, so it is timeless, placeless. So in the center of this place and this time, there is the origin of the place and the time, which is timelessness and placelessness. So this image, for example, reminds me of this one, because you could see it as being Mario in the middle of the fish and the octopus, but you could also see it as Mario moving from the fish to the octopus. He's moving towards the 8-pointed star. And here he's walking with a map trying to find the 1,000-year door. 1,000 years in mythology and in fables is usually just a way of expressing infinity, right? Extremely long periods of time usually represent infinity. So the infinity door, the infinity portal, is the 8-pointed star, or the center of the world, the be here now of Buddhism. And Mario is walking towards it. In this case, it's interesting too, because the fish is the whale. So it's like moving from the belly of the whale, therefore material existence, towards the octopus. And remember, the octopus is inside material existence. It's in the center of the shell. The pearl is in the center of the turtle shell. And Mario is using the shell as a springboard to reach the stars. The star also being the octopus, the 8-pointed star symbolically. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on in these in this artwork. There's even like another correspondence here between the fish is on the left and the fish bone is on the left, the octopus and the red flower, which also doesn't have 8 petals, but it has 4 petals. It's still divided into segments like the octopus, with a center in this. So it's a cross in a sense, right? It's 4 sides. So there's even this sort of duality between these elements. It's interesting because in another video I talked about Daisy literally representing the flower daisy, which is obviously also a sort of it's the same concept as this, right? It's the lotus flower, which is the 8-pointed star, the center of the world. And here Bowser, or the Sphinx, is guarding. I know this is not Bowser, but I mean symbolically, Bowser is guarding the center of the world, which is appropriate considering the Sphinx guarding the pyramid is the same kind of symbolism, right? The Sphinx is guarding the pyramid, which represents the center of the world in a sense. So what intrigues me here is this purple guy flowing from the right to the left, because you have this other purple guy here. Almost as if this purple guy, once he has passed from the moon to the sun, he transforms into a robotic shell. As if the fishbone is the shell, in a sense, the belly of the whale, right? The shell of the world. And then on the other side is the octopus. But of course you could also consider the rock is the shell, right? Pinocchio, right? A rock wanting to become a real person. Yeah. Which, of course, is interesting. It gives another reading of this whole thing of the pot of gold at the other side of the rainbow is also. So you have the rainbow, and the star is also the octopus in some way. It's also the lotus flower. That's one way of looking at the golden star symbol. That's why the golden star is leading you in the right direction. In fact, I remember talking about this in the other video, but I find it interesting too how you have the train or the shell, the mechanical kind of engine on the left, and then the sort of palace in the sky on the right. Oops. Here the portal, so this in a sense is also the lotus flower, right? This sort of portal in time is on the right side. But the layout, of course, is completely different. You have the sort of the dark shadows on the left next to Mario. But then in this case, there is no brightness in this picture unless this is the brightness, because this is where all the loved characters are and the portal outside of time and space. And I mean, when I say portal outside of time and space, I mean it in a Buddhist sort of way of precisely by exiting time and space, you enter time and space. It's almost the opposite of escaping. It's entering deeply into the present moment. It's sort of lightning hitting the castle as a sort of a flash of Kundalini. But still, that's the thing, right? There is a sort of certain duality that appears in these pictures. It expresses itself in different ways. Sometimes it's on one side or the other. Sometimes it's north and south. But there is a general theme and certain similarities across different themes. Of course, see, that's where the sort of the inconsistencies appear. But if this is like the flying shell, this beetle is the flying shell too, because beetles have hard shells. But it also makes you wonder, because is there any duality, for example? Is there any duality between the shark and the turtle? If the turtle is Boaz, or the shell, then the shark could be Yakin, or the fish of Christianity, the sort of active energy principle. But here, for example, it was just as easy to say that the fish represented Boaz because it was the belly of the whale. Or here again, the same thing between the sleeping fish and the waking fish can be interpreted in many different ways. Yeah. This is another case where you have Luigi associated to the dark castle, and then towards the right of the painting is the star. The left is this sort of darkness, and then towards the star. But of course, you could also interpret it as being that you are going, by going towards the star, you are going towards the darkness, because the darkness is what's hidden. So what you're trying to do, in a sense, is not escape from the darkness, but you're heading right into it, because you're entering into, or you're sort of opening a psychological portal for what was repressed, which is usually the darkness, to enter. But of course, in Mario games, this is usually represented by Luigi's quest. If you took Mario and Luigi as representing one entity, then you could see it in this way, that simultaneously both things are happening. The closer Mario gets to the star is the closer Luigi gets to the ghost. When Mario reaches the star, Luigi reaches the ghost. The shadow is touched at the same moment as the star. And that's precisely why it's the center of the world, because it's the center of the yin and the yang. But it also, in practical terms, it means that the more you, for example, the more you descend into your dreams, the deeper into your unconscious you're going to get. So the deeper into the reality of your shadow you're going to get. The more beautiful, the more dazzling your experience of life is, the closer it is to the shadow, because that's what wants to be liberated. So for example, here, again, the shadow is on the left. That's the thing, right? It's whether to interpret this as being Wario's right hand or as this being our left hand. Whether this is Boaz or Yakin. It's interesting to interpret that the shadow figure in Wario Land 4 is actually the princess, which is actually the cat. So it's the Sphinx, it's the guardian of the pyramid, is the shadow. Which would place this shadow character as being in a similar role as this, right? The guardian of the pyramid on the left-hand side. But at the same time, it is tempting to interpret this as being Boaz, precisely because it's the nighttime. And then, despite this being a ghost, it's got a golden key, so it's maybe closer to the sun. But it's all sort of in the air, so to speak. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm probably going to return to this again and again and again. In fact, I just noticed there's an egg here. So there's an egg on the left side, an egg on the left side, and I think I noticed there was another kind of egg on the left side of the screen. Somewhere. But in any case, thanks for watching.